Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgie Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as Africa races to stay ahead of the pressures caused by the pandemic, a new program aims to help strained healthcare outfits get the funding they need to respond to Covid-19. Also, distraught parents in Niger demand answers after 20 toddlers are killed in a school blaze. Families of the victims are calling for schools to be better built. And black market green gold. The demand for South African avocados leaves farmers hiring private security to watch over their precious crop as gangs increasingly target the fruit. Tons can be stolen in a single raid. But first, Africa has lagged behind in the global rollout of vaccines, and leaders are pushing to improve capacity to produce shots locally. The crisis has severely strained fragile health infrastructures. This week, a new project was launched to help African healthcare outfits access equipment they need. Earlier, the International Finance Corporation's managing director told me more about the hopes for the Africa Medical Equipment Facility.
Has been putting a lot of resources to support the response to the COVID-19. Actually, $12 billion was put by the World Bank Group. And at the AFC, we have put in place a global health platform of $4 billion, which will be helping countries to respond to the crisis. And yesterday, one of the first initiatives coming from this platform has been the African Medical Equipment Facility. We will be financing up to $300 million equipment for countries in Africa. As we all know, there is a shortage of equipment. Just to give you some numbers, we survey some countries, and only 11% of African countries, you have one MRI machine per 1 million people. Only in 23% of the country, you have one CT scanner for 1 million people. So it shows the huge need that we have today in bringing medical equipment to African economies and countries if we want to really address this pandemic, but also the global health challenges that African countries are facing.
So you've spoken a little bit there about the difficulties of getting hold of actual equipment itself, but give us a little bit more of an overview of some of the other challenges facing healthcare providers on the continent.
On the continent, as you know, when there is a pandemic, the first thing that any leader is doing throughout the world is to look at his own population. And this crisis and pandemic have shown that there were shortage of vaccines, non-availability of vaccine. Most of the vaccine has been made available to richer countries. So in the continent today, there is a strong will of policymakers and leaders to start building possibilities of producing vaccine on the continent. We have been working on supporting some of the countries in South Africa. We have been financing a company which will be doing cap and fill so that we can really increase the supply of vaccine. We are working in other parts of Africa, such as Senegal, such as Morocco, and discussing with countries how we could help them finance the production of vaccine to repurpose some of the facility existing. But beyond that, we need to do more. We need to build the drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry, to be able to produce more generic products in Africa, to work on protective equipment, to work on gloves equipment, to produce syringes and swabs. All this is missing in quantity on the continent, and there is an urgent need to help financing it. And the public sector cannot do it alone. It has to be financed largely by the private sector so that the citizen and country can buy and access those equipment which are needed quickly and at a cost which is affordable to them.
Matt Diop there from the IFC speaking to me a little earlier on. Now, a French court has sentenced a Belarusian mercenary and 2 Ivorian pilots to life in prison over a fatal airstrike on French troops in Ivory Coast in 2004. The attack on peacekeeping forces in Bouaké strained diplomatic relations. France retaliated by wiping out the entire Ivorian military fleet. Olivia Bizot has more.
6th of November 2004, at midday, 2 Ivorian jets fired rockets at a French military base in Bouaké, Ivory Coast. The airstrike killed 9 French soldiers and an American aid worker. 40 others were injured.
J'avais un ami, Thierry Baratieux, ça faisait 20 ans que je connaissais. Il est mort à 2 mètres de moi.
French intelligence issued these images of the alleged pilots leaving the planes that investigators believe were used in the strike. 3 Belarusian pilots and 2 Ivorian co-pilots, among which the 3 defendants who were sentenced to life by a French court this Thursday. The men were tried in absentia, their whereabouts being unknown. In the days following the 2004 raids, they were briefly detained. But in a twist that has puzzled investigators ever since, the French government is said to have ordered their release, fueling suspicions of a cover-up.
Ce procès aurait pu être fini, terminé en 2005, maximum en 2006. On aurait pu éventuellement connaître exactement qui sont les commanditaires qu'on ne connaît pas du tout jusqu'à maintenant. Bon, c'est simple. Et pourquoi on ne les connaît pas? Parce qu'on a tout fait pour ne pas les connaître.
Back in 2004, French troops were deployed in a divided Ivory Coast. Their mission? Preventing a new escalation between Ivorian troops and rebel forces who had controlled the area since 2002. Then President Laurent Gbagbo had ordered the army to reclaim territory held by the rebels. Those operations were ongoing when the French base was struck. France reacted furiously, wiping out Ivory Coast's small air force. This, in turn, triggered violent protests against French forces, prompting France to airlift thousands of its nationals to safety.
Anguished parents in Niger's capital are still demanding answers about a fire in which 20 preschool children were killed. The blaze tore through the building in Niamey on Tuesday. Our correspondents report.
Parents, teachers and the families of students that perished in a school fire gathered at the scene of the blaze, the primary school in the Pays-Bas district of Niamey, to pay tribute to the 20 students killed. For now, the cause of the fire remains unknown. Parents question why the school was built in a shopping lane or why the classrooms are made of highly flammable material like straw. This local leader was the first on the scene. He says that this is the 3rd time that there's been a fire at this school. This teacher's representative says he warned the authorities on the danger of straw schools.
Nous avons toujours demandé à ce que des classes en matériaux définitifs puissent être construites. Malheureusement, cela n'a pas été fait. Perdre 20 jeunes enfants de moins de 7 ans, tout simplement parce qu'ils ont voulu aller à l'école, parce qu'ils ont voulu aller apprendre à lire et à écrire, c'est une grande catastrophe pour notre pays et cela ne doit pas rester impuni.
Niamey's judicial police have opened an investigation in the hopes of preventing future tragedies.
While survivors of a jihadist assault on the Mozambican town of Palma continue to flood into the more southerly community of Pemba, around 700,000 people have fled the Cabo Delgado province since attacks first started in 2017. The numbers of displaced spiked after extremists briefly seized control of Palma last month. Our Caroline Dumais reports.
In the camp where I am here near Pemba, called the 25th of June, there were 46,000 people already in December. Well, this figure has more than doubled in March, according to the United Nations. But since Palma was taken, since there were more violence in the north of Cabo Delgado, nobody really knows how many there are because they're coming every day. On Wednesday, for instance, a boat came from Palma to Pemba with more than 200 people on board. The stories here are all the same, stories of killings, stories of kidnapping, stories of rape. And the United Nations and all the organizations here fear that the situation could worsen if the violence goes on.
Caroline Dumais there for us. Now, South African farmers are fighting against a rising wave of avocado and nut theft. Private security companies have been called in to head off increasingly organised gangs. The fruit sells well on the black market. Now, farmers can lose up to 4 tons of produce in a single raid. Some years have seen the avocado sector lose millions of euros to theft. Our team reports.
The George Valley, close to Zanin, has long been a paradise for avocado farmers, but it's turning into a battleground. Private security companies patrol night and day, keeping an eye on the area's green gold. Avocados, macadamia nuts and timber have become prime targets for organised criminals. Some farmers have lost up to 20% of their produce in the past couple of years.
It's difficult to say how much they can steal. It depends on the size of the group, how well they're organised, how much transport they've got. But to steal a ton is not uncommon. To steal up to, I would say, 4 tons an evening would sort of be a maximum.
Ian's farm resembles many others. The 45-hectare property is surrounded by an electric fence and alarm system, allowing him to react fast. His neighbour, Sandile, faces the same issues, but as a macadamia nut farmer, his product is even more appealing to criminals.
These are our nuts. 45 rands a kg. It's a lot of money, so this becomes just gold for everyone, and most definitely gives you a sleepless night that you've spent the whole season in the rain, putting fertilizer, irrigation, paying employees, and someone just on that, just about when you're about to harvest and get you the worth for your money, and someone just comes and picks it up there in the lands or in the bins.
Private security operators are beginning to better understand how the thieves work. K9 Security has 230 employees. The gangs are able to pick their way through a hectare in the space of an hour, filling trucks overnight. These photos show some of the seized cargo and those who have been caught. Facing poverty, many still try their luck though. 1 ton of avocados sold in South Africa is worth about €1,000, 3 times that when exported.
95% of the guys tell us that they're stealing because they don't have a job. And this is easy money. It's really easy money. Come cut a fence, fill a few bags, load it and you're gone.
The risk for potential thieves is low. Fruit theft is not considered a major crime and court cases rarely lead to convictions. Farmers are desperate for the authorities to take this issue more seriously.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.